Okay, hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to JFD Traders Tea Time with me, Darius Anucauskas. Today is the 27th of May 2019, so welcome everyone. Welcome to this Monday's afternoon session where we're going to have a look at the markets, a few of the charts, the usual stuff basically. But before we do that, as always, let's quickly have a read through our risk disclaimer. So, the content we produce does not constitute investment advice or investment recommendation, should not be considered as such, and does not in any way constitute an invitation to acquire any financial instrument or product. As always, a few seconds for you to read the rest and we can continue. Okay. So now the first one I want to jump in here is the DAX 30. So the German index here. Basically, it's a very quiet day today. We do have the UK and the United States closed today, so not a lot of activity here in DAX, but still kind of, let's say, it's holding on to this upside support line that has been running here for quite a while, and this one has been running here from the lows of December. And for now, as you can see, it is kind of stuck here. The index is stuck. It's stuck above this upside support line that I talked about, and of course this long-term downside resistance line that has been running here for quite a while, and that's from the highs of January 2018. So for now, we're going to be very careful with this one, very cautious. I would even say we're going to be slightly on the neutrals, on the neutral side. Basically, what we're looking here for is we need to see a nice good push back above this downside resistance line in order to kind of at least consider some of these higher levels again. If we do see a nice good push back above this downside resistance line, then yep, we will potentially consider another possible test here of this area, 12,320 zone, approximately there, or even the 12,300 just itself. So yep, we'll aim for that one. Last time it was here, it was tested here in the mid-May, but as you can see, it kind of failed to travel further up here and sold off and traveled back towards this upside support line. But as you can see, that this upside support line continues to hold, and the index now is kind of stuck here. So that's one thing. So for now, we're gonna remain cautious here and wait for a push above this long-term downside resistance line before we could get excited about higher levels. The only thing is that just for that slight better confirmation of the upside, ideally we would like to see a nice good push above the 12,175 zone, which is near the highs of the 22nd of May. This way, a break above this could open the path, could clear the path towards this 12,300, or even actually going further up here towards the highest point of May so far, of course, which is around the 12,435 zone, approximately there. Now, why I'm saying so far, we still have a few days left to trade here in May, so maybe if the acceleration is strong, then yep, we could eventually maybe reach that one. But then again, there are a lot of key resistance areas for DAX to overcome before it actually could get to this point. But of course, let's keep this idea in our heads. But again, I'll repeat myself, before we could consider higher levels, ideally we need to see a nice good push back above this downside resistance line and this 12,175 zone, approximately there. In terms of the downside, well, of course, it would be great initially, of course, to see a nice good break, another good break below this upside support line. As you can see, that this is what happened here on the 23rd of May. But if we look at the daily chart in this one, this is where it kind of opened. You see it on the 24th, it quickly opened back above this upside support line. So initially, of course, it was giving us an indication that we may see further slide lower, but then the next day it opened with a nice gap here to the upside and kind of opened above this, and now it continues to push higher, slightly higher, of course, but of course still it's somewhere neutral, let's put it that way. I'll repeat myself again here, guys. So basically, in terms of the downside, ideally we will start looking at some lower levels if we see a drop below the 11,934 and 30 zone, approximately there. But ideally for further downside, we would like to see a break below the 11,850 zone, which marks here the low of the 13th of May, and only then we will consider areas like the 11,720 or even the 11,615 zone. So for now, long story short, guys, basically for the upside, what we're looking here for is the 12,175, and the downside, ideally the 11,850. So keep your eyes on this one. Very quick touch on gold. So gold managed to push itself back above this upside support line. Now it did break it a few times here. As you can see, this upside support line has been running here from the lowest point of August last year. So it managed to get back above it. Now what I kept saying when I was reviewing gold, and even if we see a drop below this upside support line, it was still ideally we would like to see a nice good push below the 1266 zone right here before kind of examining further declines. A drop below the 1266 would confirm a forthcoming lower low, and we could then target the area around the 1250, 53, something like that. But for now, this is where it is. It managed to travel back above the upside support line and also managed to get back above this tentative downside resistance line. Now, in a way, we could adjust it here, but to be honest, we'll get rid of it for now because it's just slightly in the way. What we're going to keep an eye here on will be the key resistance areas, key support and resistance. So in order to consider further moves higher, ideally we would like to see a nice good push above the 1289 zone, approximately there. As you can see how well this played out as a nice area of resistance here back on the 26th of April, around the 9th of May, and also around the 10th of May, so, and also on the 17th of May here as well. So that's why ideally a nice good break and a close of at least of the 4-hour candle above this 1289 could open the path towards the psychological 1300 level, and a break of that of course could open the path further. But for now we're just going to keep it short and simple. Let's see what it wants to do with the 1289. If it manages to break above it and close at least the 4-hour candle above it, then yep, that's good news for the bulls, as it could increase the chances for a possible move towards the 1300. Now in terms of the downside, again, it's probably going to be more of a conservative approach here. The 1266, that's what we're looking for here, because even if it could travel lower again, I mean, this is a bit of a risky territory here, and it could reverse at any moment. So that's why ideally we would like to see a break below the 1266 level before we examine further downside. Jumping into Ripple now, I talked about Bitcoin this morning, and I was telling you that of course it showed some good performance. It seems that the cryptos tend to show good performances during the weekend. As you can see, that it also managed to rally, and it managed to break above this key area of resistance near the 0.3960, and now it's kind of holding around here. Let me just quickly put this on the chart. So this is where it's kind of stuck here at, slightly below the 0.4183 zone, something like that. So in a way, if we do see a nice good push above this, then yep, we will target some higher levels. And I need to adjust this one. This one is a bit of an old one. So basically what we're going to do here is we're going to aim for somewhere around here, guys, somewhere around the 0.44 20 25, something like that. Of course could stall a little bit around here as well, near this little peak of the 19th of May, which was around the 0.4995. But like I said, to be honest, we see this one as a more important one. The 0.4425 area, approximately there, around there. Of course, if that fails to withhold, then yep, all the way towards, it could travel all the way towards the highs of May here, near the 0.4665, or even above that. This little spike that we saw here on the 16th of May, and that was around the 0.4790 zone, so maybe just a few points lower, but nevertheless that's a very good potential target here. So in other words, guys, for now, from the very short term perspective, keep your eyes on this 0.4183 85 zone. A nice good pop and a nice good close of the 4-hour candle above it could lead towards the 0.4425. This is where we're going to be targeting, and if that's not enough for the bulls, then yep, all the way towards the highs of the 16th of May could yep, such a move could be possible. Now in terms of the downside here, of course, we need to see a nice good break below this little tentative upside support line, taken from the low of the 11th of May, but ideally probably a nice good drop below this 0.3750 zone could be a nice good area. We will then, of course, target this a little low that we saw here around the 23rd of May. But if that is just seen as a temporary obstacle, then yep, further declines could be possible. Maybe towards around it could drive towards the 0.3380. But again, for now, it's looking at this chart. It seems that the downside could be slightly off the table. So that's why for now, guys, keep your eyes on this 0.41. 83, 85 area. Let's see if it actually manages to break above it and stay above it. Jumping into a few pairs now very quickly. AUDCAD. Now I just wanted to quickly show you this one. So last week we threw out here an idea on AUDCAD where we were targeting this this downside resistance line. We said that we're not going to go too crazy on it. We're just going to aim for this downside resistance line first, and then we'll take it from there, see how it's performing. And as you can see, it worked out nicely, so we managed to hit our target. So we can get rid of this right now, and we can see that the pair is slightly reversing to the downside. Now what we're going to do here is, of course, we're going to keep an eye on this downside resistance line, but ideally we would like to see now a nice good push above this area right here near the 0.9315, 15, or in a way, actually, you could probably already lift this one a little bit higher. Let me just quickly adjust this, guys. So probably this is going to be around the 0.9325 zone. So this is where we're going to be looking for. So even if we see a nice good push above this downside resistance line, yes, that's great, that's good news. But ideally now we need to see a nice good break above the 0.9325 in order to kind of get a confirmation of a forthcoming higher high, and we could then aim for slightly higher levels. And slightly higher levels, I mean the 0.9370 area, or even this 200 EMA. For now it's stuck here, so we're going to remain cautious. In terms of the downside, well, ideally we would like to see a push back above the 0.9250 before we could kind of, let's say, aim for slightly lower areas. And by slightly lower areas, I mean the last week's lows near the 0.9195 level. So basically, if we see a drop below this area right here near the 0.9250, then we could potentially aim for the lows of last week again. So be very careful on this one, be very cautious. But again, looking at this current picture, it seems that it wants to travel higher, but again, let's wait for that confirmation break here. Very quickly on euro dollar here, so it continues to slide, so it's getting a small hit here, and it's moving away from its 200 EMA here on the 4-hour chart. It never managed to reach this downside resistance line that I talked about previously in one of my videos, or should I say in a few of my videos. This one that's running from the highs of the 10th of January. So this downside resistance line kind of continues to play out. We can see that this pair is now sliding back down. Now for us, this could be seen as a small correction, but then again, if we see a drop in a close of at least of the 4-hour candle below the 1.1175, now this is where it could turn out to be ugly for euro dollar again. We may see this one traveling back down towards this key area of support near the 1.1130, or even further than that. But for now, let's see what it wants to do around here. Let's see, first of all, if it manages actually to reach the 1.1175. If it actually doesn't, then it just reverses earlier, then would be in line excuse me, would be in line with the idea here that of a possible small correction before another leg of buying. So something like this basically. And but still, for us, let's say to turn somewhat positive on this one, at least in the near term, we'd like to see a nice good push above this downside resistance line, and then we could aim for the 1.1260. But if that gets broken, now this is where more bulls could get excited, and we could see this one traveling up and away here to the upside. So for now, be very careful, be very cautious. Yes, it is sliding to the downside, but let's see where it finds its support. If it doesn't, if it starts breaking below the 1.1175, now this is where it could turn out to be a little bit ugly for euro dollar. GBPUSD so also is on a downslide, slightly, let's say, bigger downslide than the euro dollar, but still kind of right now where it is sitting is that it's currently testing this key area of support, which previously acted as a resistance, but at 1.2665 zone approximately there. Let's see if it actually continues traveling further down. If it gets held here, then there's still a small chance for the bulls maybe to push this one back up here towards this tentative downside resistance line taken from the high of the 3rd of May. But that said, I mean, the upside here, of course, could be limited due to this downside resistance line. But in order to, let's say, consider further moves higher, ideally we would like to see a nice good push above this little recent resistance zone near the 1.2750. So in a way, if this reverses and travels higher, of course it would move above this 1.2750, or in a way, depends how far is it going to drag here. So in a way, this line here, this potential breakout zone, could come in line by the time, let's say, this reverses and pushes higher and tests this downside resistance line. So the break of this downside resistance line and the move above the 1.2750 could kind of happen at the same time. But that's, of course, I'm talking about the upside scenario. For now, as you can see, the pair is kind of sliding lower. Again, we'll be very careful with this one. Now, in terms of the downside, for us to consider further declines, well, ideally we would like to see a nice good drop back below this 1.2615 zone, approximately there. Only then we will aim for much lower levels. For now, this is a bit of a neutral territory for us, so we'll take a very conservative approach here and just sit down and hold back and wait for a possible break either through this level right here at 1.2750 or the 1.2615 zone on the downside. And the last pair, very quickly, I wanted to touch on before I wrap it up here. So USDJPY, so as you can see, traveled lower. When I talked about this one last time, I was telling you guys to keep a close eye on this 109.47 zone, approximately there. It slid lower. It tested this other key important zone near the 109.2829, and then quickly reversed back to the upside here, and now is currently sitting here near this 109.4748 area. So what we're going to do here now is we're going to shift this little up highlighted area. Let me just a second, let me grab the right one. So this is what we're going to be looking here for, guys. Now we need to see a nice good drop below the 109.2928 before we could consider let's say much or slightly lower levels, because we're not going to go too hard on this one, because there is a good potential area of support here near the 109 level. So if that gets broken, now yep, we could see further declines. This would confirm a forthcoming lower low, but if it doesn't, if it hangs around here, then we may see something like this happening. But again, this scenario only we will consider if we see a drop below the 109.28. In terms of the upside, well, ideally we would like to see initially a nice good push above this area here near the 109.70, but probably even better, we would wait for a nice good move back above the psychological 110 level before we get excited with slightly higher levels. Okay, guys, I hope you found it useful. Thank you very much for watching and listening. And if you want to join me tomorrow morning, as always, on my Traders Espresso, and that's 6 o'clock GMT time. For now, I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.